There is a name, a designation that once haunted the people of Henan province in particular, and the people of China in general. This individual terrorized the region for many years, committing countless shocking crimes. Join us in today's video to find out who this person is and what they did to incite such widespread outrage. Hello, welcome to Unmasked. On the morning of May 3, 1996, police in Zhengzhou, Henan province, received a missing person report. The report was filed by Zhu Yuanyu, 35 years old. Zhu Yuanyu stated that he had lost contact with his wife, Ren Xiaozhen, 34 years old, since the evening of May 2nd. He had tried calling her multiple times. Initially, the phone rang, but soon after, it was completely disconnected. After receiving the report, the police reassured Zhu Yuanyu, asking him to remain calm. The officer inquired whether Zhu had searched for Xiaozhen from the previous night until that moment. Zhu Yuanyu confirmed that he had been continuously contacting family, friends, and even his wife's business partners throughout the night, but to no avail. Since there was no evidence that Xiaozhen was in immediate danger, and the time from the afternoon of May 2nd until now, not yet reached 48 hours, police did not open an investigation file. They advised Zhu Yuanyu to return home and continue waiting for news. Zhu Yuanyu returned home and searched everywhere, but Ren Xiaozhen remained missing. Following day, Zhu Yuanyu returned to the police station. At this point, the police opened an investigation file. Zhu informed the police that his wife was the director of a medical equipment supply company in the city. On the morning of May 2nd, Ren Xiaozhen went to work as usual. That day, she left the house at around 6:30 a.m., showing no signs of anything unusual. Zhu Yuan, you did not work at the same company as his wife. He was an architect with a fairly flexible job. The couple had always maintained a principle of not interfering in each other's work, so Zhu Yuanyu was not fully aware of his wife's daily schedule and did not pay much attention to whom she interacted with outside. Zhu Yuan, you did not believe that his wife had left home voluntarily, as she was very passionate about her work and could not have abruptly abandoned it. Moreover, there was no reason for her to do so. Zhu also assured the police that he had complete trust in his wife and was certain that she was not involved with someone else and had left the family. The investigation team also ruled out the possibility of Ren Xiaozhen being kidnapped, as no ransom call had been made to the family after 2 days. The police considered the possibility that Ren Xiaozhen might have been involved in an accident on the road. However, after checking with local hospitals and morgues, no unidentified victim was reported. To quickly find Ren Xiaozhen, the investigation team mobilized additional forces to search riverbanks and secluded roads. However, after a day of effort, no results were found. The police then visited Ren Xiaozhen's company to gather information from her colleague. However, the colleagues revealed that Xiaozhen did not show up at the office on the morning of May 2nd. Her assistant disclosed that early that morning, Xiaozhen mentioned she had a personal matter to attend to and would not be able to come to the office, asking the assistant and subordinates to handle the work. After gathering information from colleagues and the assistant, police had 2 questions. First, if Ren Xiaozhen did not go to the company, where could she have gone? Second, why did Xiaozhen lie to her husband about going to the company when Zhu Yuan, you insisted that they trusted each other completely and had never deceived one another? The police initially sensed something amiss. They decided to investigate the victim's social relationships, starting with her husband, Zhu Yuanyu. According to information from neighbors, the police learned that although the couple appeared to love each other, their relationship was not as smooth as it seemed. A few days before Xiaozhen disappeared, the neighbors overheard a heated argument between the two. Curious neighbor went over and found the house door tightly closed, with loud noises inside, resembling the sound of dishes breaking. Fearing that the argument might escalate, a neighbor tried to intervene, but the frightening sounds continued. This information further fueled the police's suspicion. They considered the possibility that Ji Yuan-yu had harmed his wife and then staged a disappearance to mislead the investigation. While secretly monitoring Ji Yuan-yu's behavior and actions, police received information about an unidentified female body found under a bridge, not far from Ju's home. The investigation team quickly sent personnel to the scene to verify the situation. The forensic examination revealed that the victim was a woman between 30 and 35 years old, standing 1.68 meters tall, who had died 2 to 3 days earlier. The time of death closely matched the time when Ren Xiaozhen went missing. The investigation team became suspicious and invited Ren Xiaozhen's family to identify the body. Upon seeing the body, Xiaozhen's younger sister, Ren Ying Shui, cried and confirmed that it was her sister. The body's appearance, hairstyle, and clothing were very similar. However, unlike Ying Shui, Zhu Yuanyu adamantly insisted that the body was not Ren Xiaozhen. This discrepancy confused the police, as both Zhu and Ying Shui were closest to Xiaozhen, yet they gave conflicting opinion. Continuing their previous line of thought, police suspected that the body might indeed be Xiaozhen, and they considered that Zhu Yuanyuan. You might be denying it to prevent the police from uncovering the truth. To verify this suspicion, the investigation team conducted a DNA analysis. However, when the results came in, it became clear that their assumptions were incorrect. The victim was not Ren Xiaozhen. Despite this, the results did not diminish the investigation team's suspicions of Zhu Yuanyu. They asked him where he was and what he was doing on May 2nd. Knowing that the police suspected him, Zhu Yuanyu was somewhat surprised and a bit upset. To prove his innocence in his wife's disappearance, Zhu explained that on May 2nd, after his wife left, his colleague Zhou Chengwei came to pick him up for work. At that time, Zhou Chengwei witnessed Ren Xiaozhen driving away, so there was no possibility that Zhu could have harmed his wife as the police suspected. When the police visited Zhou Chengwei's home, Wei confirmed that he did see Ren Xiaozhen passing by on the morning of May 2nd. Furthermore, the entire day, Wei and Zhu worked together, which could confirm that Zhu had no time to commit any act. After losing contact with Ren Xiaozhen, Zhu Yuanyu seemed quite worried. He asked Wei to help him search for his wife throughout the night. Since Zhu had an alibi, he was removed from the list of suspects. Case gradually reached an impasse for several reasons. First, it was still unclear whether Ren Xiaozhen was in danger or not. If she was, who could have done this? By this point, many days had passed, but Ren Xiaozhen's whereabouts remained a mystery. To quickly find Xiaozhen, her family and relatives printed missing person notices and posted them all over the streets, hoping someone might have seen her and would report back. Since the day Ren Xiaozhen was reported missing, nearly 2 months had passed. Her family still held out hope of finding her. However, some also feared that Ren Xiaozhen might have met with misfortune and could already be dead. On July 15th, the Henan Provincial Police announced the discovery of a heavily decomposed female body in a ravine in the Songshan area. Body had yet to be identified. The victim's details were as follows. A woman aged around 30 to 35, with long black hair, wearing a wedding ring engraved with the words Yu and Jane. Additionally, she wore a fairly expensive watch on her left hand and a gold necklace with a heart-shaped pendant. After analyzing the scene, the Henan Provincial Police determined this was not an accident. The victim's clothing was disheveled and torn in several places, as if it had been ripped. All of the victim's bones were broken, indicating a high probability that someone had deliberately pushed her from a height. Police believed this was a particularly serious murder case and quickly began an investigation. News about the discovery of a female body in the ravine of Mount Song in Henan Province quickly spread across the country. That time, Zhu Yuanyu happened to watch the news on TV and learned about the incident. noticing that the victim's described characteristics closely resembled his wife, including eerie matches in details about the ring, necklace, and watch. Zhu Yuanyu became extremely uneasy and immediately drove to the Henan police station to verify the identity. After seeing the remaining personal effects with his own eyes, Zhu Yuanyu was convinced that the victim was indeed his wife, Ren Xiaozhen. As expected, after conducting DNA analysis, the police confirmed that the deceased woman on Mount Song was Ren Xiaozhen. At this point, the mysterious missing persons case had turned into a serious murder case. Zhu Yuanyu revealed to the police that his wife loved visiting temples. He could not understand why she had gone to such a distant one, nor could he fathom who could have committed such a brutal act against her. Despite the investigation team's efforts to find clues and narrow down suspects, the complex location of the crime scene, the long passage of time since the event, heavy rains that had washed away traces, and the severe decomposition of the body all made progress impossible. The Ren Xiaozhen case became a source of terror for those living around Mount Song, as the killer had not yet been found. However, what frightened people even more was that not long after, a series of similar cases were reported in the same area. This left the investigation team deeply troubled. Specifically, on June 13, 1997, a group of tourists from Hebei province visited Mount Song. Around 12:15, a 22-year-old woman named Liu Jing voluntarily separated from the group to enjoy a walk along a tree-lined mountain path, behind Shaolin Temple. When Liu Jing did not return after a long time, group leader grew worried and asked the local police to search for her. However, the area of Mount Song was vast. Finding one person was difficult. 5 days later, Liu Jing's body was found in a stream halfway up the mountain. Naked, her hands were tied behind her back with rope, and her mouth was covered with tape. Realizing the seriousness of the crime, police launched a large-scale search around the scene, but found no additional evidence. However, they noticed the perpetrator's method was very similar to a previous case where a girl was raped and murdered at the foot of the mountain. The police suspected that these two cases might be connected. On May 1, 1997, in Mazhuang village at the foot of Mount Song, 13-year-old schoolgirl named He Ling went missing on her way home from school. Her body was found in a wheat field on May 24th, in nearly the same condition as Liu Jing's. While the police were struggling to investigate these three cases, on the morning of September 13, 1997, another 13-year-old schoolgirl named Yao Huiying was found dead in a deep ditch by the roadside. Yao Huiying was a classmate and lived in the same village as the victim, He Ling. After compiling statistics, police discovered that since 1996, many rape-murder cases targeting women had occurred in the ravines and dense forests surrounding the famous temples on Mount Song, as well as in the village roads, the foot of the mountain. By 2001, the number of victims had risen to 7, with the youngest being only 11 years old and the oldest a woman over 50. However, 5 years had passed, and despite significant investigative efforts, police were still unable to narrow down any suspect. In mid-July 2001, Ren Chang-hee, the head of the Public Security Bureau of Dengfeng City, a well-known police officer in China, took direct supervision of the investigation and established a new special task force. After compiling and analyzing details of the case, the investigation team speculated that the perpetrator was a local resident with a permanent residence near Mount Song, using a special identity or occupation as a cover. Female police officer was assigned to go undercover to lure the perpetrator out. However, for more than 2 months after that, there was no movement in the entire Mount Song area. The police believed that the perpetrator was aware of their actions and that his hiding place was somewhere on Mount Song. The investigation team decided to use a feigned withdrawal tactic to capture the perpetrator. They withdrew police forces guarding the mountain paths of Mount Song, to make the criminal believe that the danger had passed. Around 5 p.m. on July 23, 2001, a female employee named Jing Ping, who worked at the Shaolin Temple office, was waiting for passengers while driving a three-wheeled vehicle along the road. A man, about 40 years old, dressed like a monk, approached her to hire the vehicle to go to Lianhua Temple. Jingping parked the vehicle in a lot 3 kilometers away from the temple, and then walked up the mountain with the monk to retrieve some items. It was 6:40 p.m., and the tourists had all left, making the mountain path deserted. When they reached a fork in the path, overgrown with thick vegetation, the monk who had been walking ahead suddenly turned around, grabbed Jingping by the neck, and dragged her into the forest. The assailant tied her hands tightly with rope and tried to tape her mouth shut. Realizing that she might be killed, Jingping quickly pretended to be compliant, begging the attacker to spare her life, promising to meet all his demands. As a result, the assailant left after assaulting her without killing her. Fortunately, she escaped death and immediately ran down the mountain to report to the police, providing a detailed description of the perpetrator's appearance. After receiving information from the victim Jingping, the police narrowed their focus to the area around Lianhua Temple and the nearby temple. The nuns at Lianhua Temple mentioned that someone matching Jingping's description had been there before, a man named Wang Xiaofeng. He had an unclear background, come to stay, and refused to leave. A few months earlier, he had disappeared after being beaten for theft. The abbot of the nearby Jade Emperor Temple confirmed that a Taoist priest named Wang Xiaofeng had recently come to stay and was currently gathering firewood and medicinal herbs on the mountain. Determining that the perpetrator was close by, police set up an ambush inside and around the temple, blocking the only road leading into the mountain and setting up checkpoints along the road down the mountain near Shaolin Temple. Finally, on the evening of July 24, 2001, Wang Xiaofeng was arrested by the police. Jingping confirmed that he was the one who had assaulted her the previous day. After being arrested, Wang Xiaofeng was immediately taken to the station for intense questioning by the authorities. However, he remained silent, refusing to say a word. During his time in the cell at night, Xiaofeng often shouted that he hated women deeply and also hated men. Hearing these things, the police were very curious. Although they did not know why, they understood that the suspect might have gone through some events that led to his unstable mental state. They began using various methods to calm him down, trying to understand and soothe his emotions in the hope that Wang Xiaofeng might confess the truth. However, these efforts seemed ineffective. On the 4th day after his arrest, Wang Xiaofeng suddenly asked a police officer what kind of punishment he would face if he had killed someone. The officer, named Zi Hao, replied that it depended on many factors. Xiaofeng then asked what would happen if the number of victims were higher. These questions made Zi Hao more cautious. Recognizing the suspect's vulnerability, Zi Hao decided to give a clever response. He said that if the perpetrator honestly confessed to the authorities, his sentence might be reduced, and he might even avoid the death penalty. Upon hearing this, Wang Xiaofeng began to waver. The suspect sat in deep thought for over 2 hours before finally stating that he wanted to confess everything, hoping for leniency from the law. He revealed that his real name was Wang Dongfeng, 30 years old, from Chuzhou village in Yanqi City, Henan Province. His family consisted of 2 brothers, with him being the elder. Despite their family's relatively well-off economic status, they were far from happy. The large sum of money they had was obtained by his father, Wang Dongxi, through theft. Wang Dongxi was notorious throughout the village for being a violent husband. Almost every day, he would beat his wife and children, leaving them covered in bruises. Additionally, Wang Dongxi frequently brought young women home to sleep with. Wang's mother, Xu Fushen, was no better than her husband. Tired of the constant abuse from her husband and disillusioned with the household, she had an affair. When the affair was discovered, she was beaten and then left the home. At this point, Wang Dongfeng and his younger brother were living with their father and his mistress. Not only did their father torture them, but the woman also constantly beat them. Wang dropped out of school before finishing elementary school. From then on, he began associating with local youths, engaging in bullying and petty theft. Wang Dongxi did not punish Wang for these behaviors. Instead, he encouraged them. He believed that a son should always surpass his father. In 1994, Wang Dongfeng started dating a girl from the village named Guiling. Guiling, 2 years younger than him, had a pretty face but was arrogant and looked down on others. During their relationship, Guiling often got angry and frequently threatened to break up. To avoid being abandoned, Wang indulged her every whim, even resorting to theft to give her money. First, Wang thought that his sincerity and sacrifices would move Guiling to stay with him. However, during an unannounced visit to her house, Wang was shocked to find her having an affair with one of his gang members. Enraged, Wang swore to take revenge on both of them. Fearing retribution, Guiling and the other young man decided to strike first. They went to the police station and reported Wang Dongfeng for theft. Knowing he was being hunted by the authorities, Wang went into hiding. For half a year, he fled to different places during the day and committed petty thefts at night. Wang Dongfeng executed numerous thefts, becoming increasingly sophisticated in his methods. Wang realized that living a fugitive life would eventually lead to his capture by the police. He believed that the most dangerous place was also the safe. Therefore, he decided not to go far but instead returned to his hometown in Henan Province, heading to the mountainous region of Mount Song in Zhengzhou City. At this time, Wang changed his name from Wang Xiaofeng to Wang Dongfeng, and posed as a Taoist priest to tell fortunes and swindle money from others. Over time, Wang Dongfeng's psychological state became increasingly unstable. After living in the mountains for a while, he developed a desire to hold and touch women, especially while telling fortunes. Although he could do this, it did not satisfy his desires, particularly when he saw couples visiting the temples together. Wang Dongfeng became increasingly irritated, envious, and eventually determined to possess other women. Initially, Wang Dongfeng targeted only young, beautiful girls. But he soon found it too difficult to choose. So he decided to attack randomly, regardless of age or appearance. On May 2, 1996, Ren Xiaozhen from Sichuan province visited Mount Song for sightseeing. Xiaozhen began her climb early in the morning, visiting the Shaolin Temple, the Tungyue Temple, the Stargazing Tower, and the Chongyang Monastery. Later, she walked alone along the mountain path toward the mysterious Hualien Temple. Seeing Xiaozhen walking alone, Wang Dongfeng started following her. Halfway there, he noticed that Xiaozhen seemed lost and in need of help. Wang, hiding in the bushes, suddenly stepped out and said, "Amitabha." Ren Xiaozhen, upon seeing the monk, respectfully greeted him and asked for directions to Hualien Temple. The monk warmly offered to guide her. After walking a long distance on the steep path, Xiaozhen became exhausted. Noticing her sweating, Wang Dongfeng suggested they rest for a while. Xiaozhen sat down on a rock, admiring the surrounding scenery. She praised the beauty of the place and asked the monk if he felt the same way. When she turned around, expecting a response, she was horrified to find the monk lunging at her. Wang Dongfeng grabbed her by the legs and began kissing her forcefully. He also attempted to rip off her blouse. The two struggled for a while. In a fit of anger over Xiaozhen's resistance, Wang Dongfeng pushed her off a cliff. Hearing her helpless screams as she fell, Wang Dongfeng felt an immense sense of satisfaction. He showed no fear, even smiling as if nothing had happened. More than 2 months later, Ren Xiaozhen's body was found. On May 10, 1997, it had been raining continuously for many days, and the humidity was very high. A light white mist covered the mountains, rivers, and fields at the foot of Mount Song. Because visibility was relatively low, few people visited. Wang Dongfeng really wanted to satisfy his lust, but he couldn't find anyone, so he had to move down to the foot of the mountain. Seeing the young female student He Lingling walking alone, Wang Dongfeng decided to choose her as his prey. Feng followed Lingling to the eastern slope of the mountain. At this time, observing that there was no one around, Wang Dongfeng ran over, spread his arms and hugged the female student in the same way he had done to the previous victim. The monk used tape to cover her mouth, tied her hands, and escorted He Lingling to a nearby wheat field. After harming He Lingling, Wang Dongfeng covered her nose until she stopped breathing. On June 13, 1997, a large number of tourists from all over the world came to Shaolin Temple, making the space crowded. This inadvertently became an ideal opportunity for the murderer to strike. At around 11 a.m. that day, a tour group of men and women from Hebei went to Songshan Mountain for sightseeing. At 12:15 p.m., Liu Jing, 22 years old, separated from the group to walk along the tree-lined mountain path behind Shaolin Temple. While she was admiring the surrounding scenery, Wang Dongfeng approached from behind. Liu Jing bowed and greeted the monk politely. Without saying a word, Wang Dongfeng took advantage of the opportunity to rush forward, covered her mouth with prepared tape, tied her hands, and dragged her to a stream halfway up the mountain. Feng quickly stripped off Liu Jing's clothes and proceeded to rape her. The more Liu Jing struggled, the more the pervert acted violently. Because she was placed on the rocks, the girl's body was scratched in many places. After satisfying his animalistic desires, Wang Dongfeng strangled the victim until she suffocated. When he was about to leave, Feng suddenly had a sick idea. Feng remembered the girl who had betrayed him in the past and was extremely angry, associating Liu Jing with Gui Lingfeng's ex-lover. Deciding to brutally torture her body, he used a stick, repeatedly hit her genitals, causing serious injuries. In addition, he deliberately used his hands to pull hard on the victim's 2 breasts. Liu Jing died naked by the stream. The body was not discovered until 5 days later. Because it was exposed to the sun under the influence of high temperatures and insects, the rate of decomposition was faster than normal. Realizing that young girls were much easier to attack, Wang Dongfeng targeted this group of subjects. On the afternoon of September 12, 1997, Wang Dongfeng continued to go down the mountain and search for prey. This time, he followed a female student who was walking home alone. The female student's name was Yao Huiying, 13 years old, a classmate of the previous victim, He Lingling. Wang Dongfeng deliberately approached Yao Huiying. Feng said that she had gone on a pilgrimage and had nothing in her stomach, so he wanted her to help. Yao Huiying innocently took some pocket money from her pocket and gave it to the monk. Feng immediately refused, saying that she only wanted to be given food. Hearing this, Yao Huiying immediately suggested taking the monk home. Feng pretended to follow her, but when they reached a deserted place, quickly attacked her. Despite Yao Huiying's crying and begging, Wang Dongfeng still showed no sign of pity. He dragged the girl to a bush, sexually assaulted her, and intentionally used his hands to destroy her genitals. Finally, Feng dragged the victim and threw her into a deep ditch by the roadside. The entire process, committing the crime, was not discovered by anyone. After that, due to the police's involvement, Wang Dongfeng began to be more cautious in his actions. Although the police had spread their nets everywhere, they still could not stop the pervert from committing depraved acts. Wang Dongfeng, disguised as a monk, brazenly appeared, even going to the scene to observe the investigation team solving the case. Because the police had not yet narrowed down the suspect, Wang Dongfeng appeared extremely pleased. He looked down on the police's ability to solve the case. As time went on, Feng became more and more rampant, increasing the frequency of his actions and expanding his target. Wang Dongfeng admitted to the police that from 1996 to 2001, during more than 5 years of hiding in the mountains, he had sexually assaulted 19 people and murdered 7 people. Feng searched for targets in temples, in the mountains, and on remote roads at the foot of the mountains, regardless of age. The youngest victim was 11 years old. The oldest was 60 years old. Wang Dongfang said that he usually wore a Taoist priest's robe to cheat. When he committed the crime, he dressed like a monk and changed his identity. That's why no one was on guard against him, and the police didn't suspect anything. While giving his statement, the pedophile murderer seemed quite pleased. He even claimed that he acted very professionally. Fong said that not everyone could fool the authorities in such a sophisticated way. After learning that he could not escape the death penalty, Wang Dongfeng had a very strong reaction. He refused to eat, kept banging on the cell door and shouting loudly. When he was escorted to the court, Wang Dongfeng smiled contemptuously. He believed that allowing so many serious cases to happen in a row in 5 consecutive years showed the negligence of the police force. The murderer also affirmed that if he had been properly trained, he would definitely be the superior. These people, causing a series of shocking cases, Wang Dongfeng made all the Chinese people extremely angry. In the intermediate trial in September 2001, Wang Dongfeng was sentenced to death. On the day of his execution, many people came to attend. When they saw the pedophile murderer fall, the crowd cheered with great enthusiasm. Even Wang Dongfeng's parents felt disgusted by his actions. They did not even go to the execution ground to see their son for the last time because they were afraid of being attacked by the victims' families. After more than 5 years of rampage on Mount Song, the pedophile murderer Wang Dongfeng committed countless brutal crimes, terrifying the people of China. In this case, people believe that the failure to find the perpetrator in the first case caused no small consequences, causing many deaths. However, fortunately, the perpetrator was finally punished. This case also exposed a number of individuals and organizations who are wearing the guise of religious gurus, using religion to make profits. They even committed many wrongdoings, defaming religious beliefs.
Thank you for joining us in today's video. If you have any other interesting cases you want us to explore, please share them in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel to learn more about real cases around the world.